Welcome to the Snap UK podcast, bridging the pond for all the news, views and opinions you need on the NFL. I'm Mike, and this week we are once again at the lab. I'm joined by Gary, John and Paul. Say hello.
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 And still on the pup list this week is Jim. At his age, hardly surprising he can't keep up with us youngsters. That's only fair.
He is well old.
Part 2 of this week's pod will be our preview of the AFC. We have each a division to cover, and we'll be unleashing our thoughts on each team's chances, from the cream of the crop to those who dwell at the bottom.
Jets.
Probably. We'll be also posing potential bets to try and pick Paul's pocket and leave him penniless before the energy crisis beats us to it. But before all that, news.
Yay!
We're going to leave the miserable news to the end because it's just going to make us all angry. Then we can have a break and come back refreshed. So, the Panthers name a starter, and to no one's surprise, it's Baker Mayfield who beats out Sam Darnold and the now out for the season Matt Corral, who wasn't really in the mix, but apparently was.
And PJ Walker.
Don't forget PJ Walker, who will now presumably be on the roster for the season and step in when these two are both injured.
Yeah.
There's
Baker
far
apparently
worse backups than PJ Walker.
There's far worse backups than Sam Darnold, but this is the thing. What does this mean for Darnold's career now? Like, he's stuck at the Panthers this season as a backup. Presumably, they don't want to play him.
He's going to be a backup now.
Career?
Yes.
That's his chances.
I think so. I don't think... There'll be more talent. Next year's quarterback class is supposed to be stronger again. Is that right?
Yeah.
Obviously, you've still got a lot of young quarterbacks because the league has been transitioning through its old quarterbacks. So you've got no chance, I don't think, of him really getting it. Unless he goes somewhere as a backup, somebody gets injured, and he comes in and does very well. So he might have a second wind in 2 or 3 years after being a backup. A bit like Geno Smith.
It's the Sam
Marcus
Bradford
Mariota.
route.
Yeah.
For me, yeah, it's the Sam Bradford route for me.
So that's his opportunity. He's got to go and be a solid backup and wait for his opportunity. No coach is going to put their career on Darnold's back anymore.
No, the Sam Darnold comparison is interesting because Sam Bradford looks like a perennial Pro Bowler when compared to Sam Darnold. He's just put nothing on film. Nothing positive. He jumps at the sight of his own shadow.
He has. He's put 6 games over 4 years of positive, and then he's put a whole lot of negative.
It's just so disappointing.
I feel sorry for him because that Jets team he joined at the beginning was trash.
It was, and we say this a lot, it's all about where you land. But he had the opportunity at the Panthers. Don't forget how hot he started last season. He led the league in rushing touchdowns for the first 3 weeks. He had like 5 touchdowns in 3 games. But as soon as he was asked to drop back and pass under pressure being the key phrase, he cannot do it. He cannot cope with the pass rush. He's not the first.
No.
But it's for the amount of talent he had, bearing in mind, in his penultimate year at college, people were saying, this is trending towards the Andrew Luck direction. I believe his last year was a bit of a downturn, and then he came into the league and never recovered form. Not really, because he was at the Jets, and it's the wrong place to try and recover your form.
His first year, he had some really good, and he had some really bad. That is a rookie quarterback.
Yeah.
The second year was exactly the same. The third year was exactly the same. It's just what he is. His ceiling it could be higher because he's still ridiculously young for
24.
I think he might be slightly.
I think he might be 25.
Yeah.
Okay,
but he came in really young. If by chance he goes to another place and backs up someone who gets injured, he could have maybe a Foles type career.
A random resurgence
here and there, but yeah.
He's got to wait and see.
He's got to wait and see, but
Foles had one good season.
Don't forget when Foles made his first appearances, he led the league in.
Oh, I know. But I'm just thinking like with the Foles of the last 8 years.
I suspect Sam Darnold is more destined for a Chad Henne career where you win a Super Bowl as somebody's backup, or a David Carr.
Yeah.
Where you've bombed out completely and then you've got a Super Bowl ring because you were on the Giants when they won it.
Yeah.
But say if he gets lucky, he can have a maybe backup and put some stuff on tape, and then he could be where Trubisky is now, where he's had to be a backup, but has found himself. Trubisky is 6 years in the league now. has found himself for the first time under a brilliant head coach.
Yeah, he did well to go to the Bills. It was the right move. But don't forget, Trubisky did go on 2 playoffs.
Oh, I know,
as
yeah.
well, whereas Darnold's done nothing. Okay, moving away from the negative then, Baker.
Well, we get to see Browns-Panthers first game of the
We
season
do,
now,
which is great.
Which is going to be really funny.
Garrett's already come out and said there is no ill feeling. There'll be no target on Baker. Now, that makes me think there's absolutely a target on Baker. But Baker apparently has picked up the offense in 2 weeks, like really quickly, just grasped it, which Darnold never looked like he'd done. So
Drop back and pass the ball.
Or give it to McCaffrey.
well, you get 2 weeks to give it to McCaffrey.
I don't know. I think I'm going to go.
You're going to go big on McCaffrey.
I'm going big on McCaffrey this year.
So we had this brief debate the other day, didn't we, about what stock do you put in the Panthers squad overall? Some people feel they're better than listed. Some of us, certainly myself, I think that they're lurking towards the poor end of the squads again, and that Matt Rule is in trouble this season. If they don't end with at least a 500, preferably a winning record, I think he's in trouble.
I'm with you on this.
So they're in the division to get to 500, aren't they? The division's quite poor.
Yeah.
There's certainly a way, and now Baker is leading the charge.
There's like 3 transitioning teams in that division.
And don't forget, I don't think Baker's an elevator, but I think he has leadership. And
He's better than Mariota.
Well, on that Browns team,
Better than Jameis.
the first Browns team that he was on, he was actually able to drag them to some wins as they were rebuilding a team.
This is where Baker's good. It's when his back's against the wall and he's coming out fighting, is when he's really good. I think he's the type of player that he can only be in a club for 2 or 3 years, which is just how he is. I think he needs
an enemy.
He needs to be an enemy. He needs to be constantly challenged, and I think you can only do that. You can only create the enemy yourself
So it's
for so long.
personality over ability.
I think the ability's there, but I think you need the personality to unlock it. And I think this is ideal, especially the Browns' first game. I mean, the worry is actually that he's so hyped up because he goes out and does something stupid.
That's what he loves, though. He loves it. When he's in... And if you look at his record against teams he used to play for, they're amazing. I think Baker, because he loves the stage, doesn't he? You know, he'll just see this as an opportunity. And like, that's what the Panthers have got to hope, that he's out there with a point to prove now. If he becomes Baker Mayfield with a point to prove, like Baker Mayfield at his best is good. He's a good quarterback.
Yeah.
Problem is, he's very inconsistent. That's the problem with Baker. So
And he's played injured a lot.
Yes.
yeah. So if he's fit and got the bit between the teeth, then it could really elevate the Panthers from where they were last year. Because if you think ever since Cam stopped being Cam, that's the issue they've had. They've not had a decent quarterback
Since he didn't drop on that ball in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
They have not had a quarterback worth their salt.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know.
It's certainly an interesting situation. We're also going to see something else involving the Browns in a few minutes and where they'll be playing. Before we get to that, Chase Young moves to the physically unable to perform list, which is not a shock after his ACL injury last year. So he misses at least the first 4 weeks of the season. More interestingly, what do we think about Ron? Is Big Ron in trouble if this goes wrong?
I think that his reputation gives him the season.
I have to agree, but when you look what's out there, I mean, the Commanders aren't going to be challenging for Sean Payton. If you think, do you know what, we've given him a great team and they've not. What is the point of firing Big Ron? Because quite frankly, there's nothing better out there for the Commanders. You just have to keep building that team. The problem is, it's the Commanders. I would imagine, if it was fair, one would leave before the Commanders got rid of him, because
Yeah, that's where I was going. Is it more likely that he walks away in amongst all the confusion that consistently follows this team around?
I think right now he's probably got more power than he's ever had, because that is a franchise that is searching for and needs stability, and they're not in the position to focus on results on the pitch until they sort the organisation out. So I don't think there will be at all any pressure on Big Ron.
Nah.
Okay.
If I'm honest,
I love how Big Ron's a thing now.
Big Ron. Now,
we can call you Big John. No,
so here's the thing, right, with Ron Rivera. Do you think the Panthers were too quick to get rid of him?
No.
You don't have to shout, Paul. You can just lean into your microphone.
No. No, I don't think they were too quick to get rid of him. I think his time there had come to an end.
Okay.
But I think the Panthers and the Commanders are totally different.
The second part of that question is, if I told you the Commanders had to appoint a coach for the next 7 seasons to see them through all the turmoil and all the rebuild, would you think Ron is the right person?
No, but they need stability, and he's the closest thing they have to stability in that place.
Yeah, I think we don't know what's going to happen there in Washington yet.
That's why I picked 7 years. It's a long time you can't see.
And I think that's a long time for any NFL coach now. You don't see many go 7 years.
3 years is the average, isn't it?
That's what I'm saying. So I would say, do you want Ron Rivera there for 3 years? And I would say, yes, I do, if I was a Washington fan. Because he will build me a solid team and he will instill the right values into that organisation. So yes, for 3 years, I would take not challenging, not being in the playoffs, but to restore some sort of credit to the organisation and set them on the right footings to move forward, then I think he's exactly the right person.
He's the only good thing in Washington right now.
And I think with the amount of turmoil behind the scenes, you have to give him time.
As well, his excuse at the moment is, you've given me a £35 million quarterback who's shit. It's
You'd like to think he was involved in that decision.
Oh, I'm sure he's.
Tell you what, let me give me the most important person that I'm going to have on my roster, and I'll have no say in it. Like, you can't. That's not how it works, is it? You see the brains trust at the organisations.
Yeah. So, no, but yeah.
So I don't think he can use that as an excuse. If Carson Wentz came into that organisation, then Ron let him.
Oh, I know, but it's bought Frank Reich another year. It can buy one another year. It can buy one sometime because big one.
So elsewhere on the Commanders, talking about good things for them, Logan Thomas is activated off the PUP list.
For now.
For now,
3 weeks.
Yeah, granted.
Well, it'd be nice if he can join Wentz on the injury bench in week 5.
Get concussion or does another injury.
Yeah.
But they've got that young quarterback, haven't they? They drafted. You have to give me. I can't remember his name.
Sam Howell.
And I think he's actually could put pressure on.
I've already said I think Sam Howell might make an appearance this season. I'm not sure the club are sold on Heineke and no one's sold on Carson Wentz. So Sam Howell may. The problem is he's extremely raw.
But maybe that's what they need.
It would be surrendering the season, and in this division, there's a chance of wins early in the season.
That roster, they're surrendering the season right now.
Maybe, but Logan Thomas for me is a key piece. 3 touchdowns in the 6 games he played last season, and he is one of the best weapons they have. We know about Scary Terry, but he's going to be double covered all the time. You've got to have somebody you can put in the red zone for Baker to hit. Basically, that's what he requires.
Yeah.
And so I think if Logan Thomas can play 12 to 17 games, which, to be fair, he's had 2 16-game seasons and 2 12-game seasons in his career. He's not missing all the time. Then I think it's nothing but a really big upgrade. He's a really good second-level tight end. He's not, name your Kelseys, your Kittles, and your Wallers. But in the next tier down, Logan Thomas is excellent.
Yeah, I agree. He's
Evan
he's
Ingram.
good.
It's like an Evan Ingram.
No, he's better
I
than
think
that.
that's hard.
Goddard.
That's harsh on him.
Yeah, Goddard.
There's no way he's as good as that.
Goddard's top 10.
I'd say he's pushing.
I'd say Logan on his.
He's not as good as Hawkinson, Gesicki. Like, when you start naming good tight ends, I think you're being a little bit kind. Like, he's got skills, but if you're not on the pitch, you've got nothing.
He's decent, and what the Commanders need is decent. So, yeah, I think that you're right. Going back to what you said, it's good news for a team that sorely need good news.
His injury record is much like Tyrann Matthews. I think it's
overplayed.
I think it's overplayed by some people.
Wasn't me though.
No,
wasn't me.
He's had a couple of bad years, but it's generally pretty solid.
With PUP list and non-football injury lists, the 12th pick in the draft by the Lions, Williams was placed on the non-football injury reserve list this week, which is not great for a team that's trying to rebuild.
Yeah, they knew that though.
Yeah, I mean, so damaging your ACL in college and not being ready to come back, he's still going to be a solid pick. The best thing they can do is sit him for as long as he requires this. But it's not ideal, but it can't be unexpected. Let's have a look around other players that you may have missed being on the pup list, or you may not care. Lyle Collins at the Bengals, big part of their O-line and what they want to do moving forward.
Yeah.
Back injury. Says he's getting better daily, but...
And their O-line wasn't amazing last year either.
No, it wasn't.
No,
and he's a massive upgrade for them.
He's an upgrade. He's also not the only upgrade they've made, is it? So at least, hopefully...
Hey,
when he
somebody's
comes
reviewing
back.
that division shortly.
Well, we'll get to that. Michael Gallup, wide receiver of the Cowboys. Now, they need...
We knew that. We
We knew he was on there. Still no news on when he comes off. Like they could be thin to start the season at wide receiver.
But CD Lamb needs to be a WR1.
Yes.
And this is the opportunity, more than ever.
Is he a WR1 though?
He should be.
Because there were times when Gallup well outplayed him.
He has the talent to be a wide receiver 1, but he needs Gallup
To draw
to
coverage.
show coverage as well. Like the tight end there is good, but
Dalton Schultz.
But I think his injury record's very much like Logan Thomas's over the last couple of years.
Not always available, it's fair to say.
He's not, but yeah, losing Amari Cooper, I think, is
Giants.
big.
Shaquille Leonard is still on the pup list. They're looking to bring him off any time now, but they've already said he would not be fit for week 1.
Yeah,
They want to get him off the list so he can practice, but he'd not be available to play. That's a massive thing for the Colts. They need him. If he's not ready by week 3 or 4, they're going to be starting to fall behind because he's such a massive player for them.
as well. Isn't Gilmore already injured for them as well?
Yes, I
So he's
think
going
he
to
has
miss the
picked up an
first.
injury.
He's going to be missing the first couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Someone is previewing that team as well. Surely.
On the good news from the pup list, David Bakhtiari for the Packers,
Yes.
working his way back. He is off the list and he's working day to day. Again, they don't want to commit to him playing week 1, but he's now available for walkthroughs with the team and practices, contact practices. So that's a bonus for them because he's a huge part of what they want to do on the O-line.
Yeah. No. It makes.
He's just huge.
Well,
Yeah.
you've got to protect Aaron Rodgers somehow, haven't you?
You have.
That's where all your money is.
It certainly is. Speaking of all the money, Jesse Bates signs the franchise tag with the Bengals, and Roquan Smith will play out his deal with the Bears. 2 players I expect to see moved on fairly quickly. Jesse Bates at safety, yeah, he's great, but do you invest all your money in safeties? No, not unless you're the Seahawks. It's just not a good idea.
Well, Jesse Bates is a very good safety. But yeah, it's a lot of money.
At some point, you've got to be paying Joe Burrow.
Exactly, that's it.
This is them. I think it's quite clever by them because they're making the most of the money they have while they're not paying Burrow.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, no, it's he'll find a team because he's a very good player.
Roquan Smith's the same. He's effectively playing this season to get a big contract somewhere else, which could actually bode very well for the Bears. Or he might duck out of lots of things. And
Well, their one superstar is going to take the pitch, which is good. But yeah, he especially as the season goes on, the Bears will probably be out the playoffs by week 10.
He'll have spent about 80% of the playing time on the field.
Yes. And he might at that point he might think, do you know what? If it's a 50-50, that's a 75-25. You know,
Yeah.
he's going to make that
Bit of a niggle.
Yeah. So yeah, no, but and it's good for him because he should be serving himself because the Bears have treated him appallingly.
well, who
If he
wants
did-
to commit their future to a club that has failed everybody else that's committed their future?
And as well, if you're not going to, if you're also going to not pay him the market rate, despite that you're one superstar, then yeah, move on.
How many? We've mentioned 2 terribly run franchises already this evening: the Commanders and the Bears. Who falls below them in terms of badly run franchises?
Texans,
Jaguars, Jets.
At least with the Jaguars, you can see an upswing. You can see what they're trying to do.
They've been trying to do it for a long time.
No, but this feels different.
Lions.
it feels different. We felt this before, and they always end up spiraling back down. You know, let's see them actually do it first.
This year or next year, they get to the championship game, they'd bite your hand off.
Yeah.
So
It ain't going to happen.
I'd argue the Browns as well, because even the way they've handled this whole Watson and Baker thing's been embarrassing. Even with the wealth of talent they've managed to amass, they're still managing to mess it up.
Yeah, it's true.
Seahawks are falling away. For a few years, they were
Annoyingly good.
and now you just think, what the
Massive
fuck are you
leadership
doing?
vacuum there.
Yeah,
though.
yeah.
That's a slightly different scenario for me. It's not something that's been going on for 10, 12 years.
Well, I don't know. Like, they had like 7 years of success, and before that, they were
bad.
pony for like 25.
isn't this a top-down thing from Paul Allen dying?
Yes,
They
that's
got
what I mean.
Russell Wilson and some neon green shirts, and then all of a sudden everyone loved them. Like, the shirts were horrible.
I mean,
Well, that defense was just out
It's,
of this
they,
world.
they hit like pure gold for a couple of years, but yeah, before that, there were, you wouldn't have thought actually that they'd survive in Seattle. Like, they'd be one of the teams that you'd imagine would move, because Seattle didn't want them for a while.
The Los Angeles Seahawks.
But they could have been.
it could have been, yeah.
Like they
You're right.
were saved by the MLS, because it was the MLS team that
Sounders.
that built the stadium. So yeah, they just got lucky. They had a hot streak, but it's surrounded by a moat of turd. It's true. But yeah.
It is true. It is true. I look at the Commanders these days, and I often think back to the early 2000s Raiders and
Yeah.
how badly run that franchise was for a long time.
That's also
The
another franchise.
Jamarcus Russell era.
That's been pretty badly run as
averaging-
well.
The early 2000s, they were great.
Sorry, yeah.
About half the league is pretty poorly run.
We're talking 2007 onwards
Oh,
for the
yeah.
Raiders. They were terrible for 10
Well, but again, they
10
didn't
years.
know what was happening with them, did they? Are they going to have a stadium? Not going to have a stadium?
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
And their long-term leader had died, and Mark Allen wasn't really a leader, or isn't really a leader at all.
A leader
3
in
years.
haircuts.
Leader in bowl
No
cut.
one's following.
3 years ago, you could have said the Bucks.
Exactly. The Bucks were historically bad.
Historically bad. They
Pre-Sean Payton,
They're
the
historically
same.
bad, but
No.
have won 2 Super Bowls in the last 15 years.
I am not having you say the Glazer family make mistakes in ownership.
You say that they've won 2 Super Bowls,
yeah, they're high points, but they're
but
Yeah, I know.
does that matter? Like, this is a game where you go through transitions and peaks and troughs all the time, unless you're the Niners and the Cowboys in the 80s and 90s, or the Patriots in the last decade. And apart from that, every team goes through peaks and troughs. Some are much shorter and sharper, and some, they take much longer to crash and burn, and then longer to come back. It's just how the league works, because of the way it's set up.
Imagine if you supported a team that had 2 Super Bowls and 20 losing seasons in the last 24 years.
The Giants aren't that. Are the Giants that dissimilar to the Bucks in some ways?
No.
yeah. But I'd also say
I'm
there's
not saying
quite
it's
a lot.
not disappointing.
I'm
but
saying there's quite a lot of evidence that the Giants are a poorly run
and I'm
They
not
are.
saying that's not the case. But all I'm saying is, actually, you still got the Super Bowls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a fair point, I think.
But yeah,
I watched my team beat the best
Not every
team of
point
all
I
time.
make is bad, John.
I know, but yeah, the Super Bowls are there, so at least
They're lights shining in the dark is what
So-
they are.
I would say that the first Super Bowl, like
It's like to be disappointed every year.
Can we just agree shit teams are shit?
In
and move
February.
on?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I've been married.
Like, to be disappointed every year in February rather than in December. It's really heartbreaking.
Anyway, Kenyon Drake released by the Raiders after only 1 year and $11 million.
What a waste of money.
There's one happy agent.
Who looked at his record at the Dolphins and went, "Oh, I'm going to spend 11 million money on him"?
I'll tell you who,
He was
Gruden, Gruden and Mayock.
Idiots.
Yeah, is it
He
a
always-
surprise that didn't work out so
I know.
well?
He
Yeah,
was just one of these who you always thought had talent and was going to go on and have a good season. He'd be like you'd put him in like maybe on your bench on fantasy, and you think he might be a viable option because he's the number 1 back at the Dolphins, so he's going to play, he's going to score points. Nah, 55 yards. 55 yards.
55 yards, is that what we're...
55 yards.
he's a well-paid Chase Edmonds.
He's not as good as Chase Edmonds, I don't think. He
you-
should be. He's more talented.
Yeah, he'll be fine because he's got his 11 million from his year effectively. And he'll find another job because it's what winning backs do. They'll break down he'll find himself at X team, and he'll get
Do you remember
55 yards a game.
Do you remember why he got such a big contract with the Raiders? Because his season when he started 13 games for the Cardinals in 2020, he ended just shy of 1,000 yards, 955, and he had 10 touchdowns at 15.9 yards a rush. Like, he was putting up big numbers that season, and that got him to the Raiders on a really big 2-year deal. And unfortunately, 6 starts, 254 yards, averaging 5.3 rather than 15.9. It's a massive drop off, and you can see why they've decided to sort of cut bait on this one. It just hasn't worked out. I think there was serious decisions to be made about getting rid of Josh Jacobs because of his injury record and the fact that they're going to have to pay him at some point. And I think they decided to stick rather than twist.
Yeah,
and they're gonna go with it from here and see. We joked last week, but the return to focus of Amir Abdullah, prominence, means that Kenyon Drake isn't required because Abdullah does the same job and is a tenth of the money probably.
Yeah,
and that's a league minimum.
Yeah, exactly. So why would you not? Don't forget, and I think I've got the Raiders to cover later in the previews. Josh McDaniels has had James White for 7 years at the Patriots, and Amir Abdullah is going to get that role. It was going to be between him and Drake, and they've decided, well, we can go down the cheap route for this because they've also got to recoup some salary cap space because wide receivers they've had to pay.
As well as a catching back, you don't want to pay him a lot of money because all they're going to do is play 4 games and get smashed because that's what that happens. I'm just looking up Amir Abdullah.
You're looking up Amir Abdullah's contract?
1 million.
1 million. Oh, yeah. So there you go. A tenth. This is the thing.
Less than a tenth.
It's sensible. It's sensible football.
Yeah.
Which is odd coming from the Raiders.
Well, it's because Gruden's gone. That's why.
Let's talk about something that may or may not be sensible football. Lamar has finally had some contract talks with the Ravens. The Ravens apparently offering a deal bigger than Deshaun Watson, but not fully guaranteed. And Lamar is holding out, saying, I think I'm worth all of the money. Now, you look at what Watson and Kyler Murray, who've set the market in the offseason with their deals, neither of them has been on a playoff run, which Lamar has 3.
MVP.
An MVP.
Not coming off the best season, though, is he?
He's not coming off the best season, but the whole team has come off a bad season. Like, they went through 6 running backs and his own injury. He was replaced by 2 other guys.
I'm not sure anyone should get $250 million guaranteed.
No, of course not, but the market is set where it is. Do you really think the Ravens are going to let him walk away?
No, they'll come to an agreement. I don't think they'll get it all guaranteed. I think there'll be a small percentage that isn't.
I don't think he'd want to walk away from the Ravens. That's a team built for him.
It is, but
money talks.
Money talks, and he knows it. He'll just end up franchise tag. He'll get his money, and
it'll be to the detriment of the club if it's done that way. So
it is, but as well, I understand. If your bargaining agreement is, I am worth because he has playoff runs to say he's got an MVP. He's not sexually assaulted 30 women
that we know of.
He's over 6 foot tall, and as I say, the whole team is set up for him. As well. Like this summer, they got rid of his number 1 wide receiver.
Hey, I'm going to be reviewing this in a minute.
But
it's not out of my division.
But yeah, no, I think
anyone think that this time next season we're not talking about him leading the Ravens on a new contract?
Oh no, it'll get sorted.
New contract,
yeah.
Not franchise tag.
It'd be like,
no, he'll get the contract.
It'd be like the Kyler Murray thing. It would be a bit of consternation, then of course he'll get the contract.
I don't think there'd even be that much consternation. They're nearly there.
He's conducting the talks himself with his mum as his backup, which I like.
Well, what was the problem with Kyler? He was being led by an agent who gave him the wrong advice.
Yeah.
At least I know. Your mum as an agent might not be the best, but
my mum would be a terrible agent.
I love your mum as an agent.
Really?
She's so mean. I'd get so much money. But
she's not mean anymore. She's really mellowed.
This is coming from our mum, who I take to buy cars with me because she gets me extra stuff.
Yeah, true. But
how old are you again?
Old enough to not Should I say that out loud?
Okay, let's talk about someone who could have probably benefited from some advice from my mum. We have to talk about the Deshaun Watson saga.
Do we?
I'm afraid we do. For two reasons. Firstly,
Quickly.
It's news.
Firstly, because it's news and it's happened. And secondly, because everyone wants this to go away. And it shouldn't fucking go away.
No, it should
The guy should be talked about in the disgraceful terms that he deserves to be talked about all season because the NFL want to bury him.
No. Forever.
Yeah, and we shouldn't allow it
Because
to be
he's
buried.
shown no contrition. Like, that's the thing. I would imagine opposition fans are never going to let him forget this.
You'd like to think that they'd be as funny as football fans are here with some of their chanting.
I'd imagine if he ends up having a trip to Philly, you know.
Pittsburgh fans on a bender. Watson is a sex offender.
You know,
allegedly.
It's going to be harsh, like the Kurt Zuma chants the other week when he was rolling around on the floor and they were singing "That's How Your Cat Felt," which I thought was amazing. Let's start at the beginning with this. So the league have agreed with Deshaun Watson's representatives that it will be an 11-game suspension and a $5 million fine to be donated to a charity for refuges for women victims of assaults and things. I don't know how that wording is. And he also has to take part in a program to address his behavioural issues. Now, all of that's well and good. It's a disappointing number for those of us, including the NFL, who thought it should be a year. However, I thought it was going to end up being 12 games because it was always going to be a negotiation. And there is a reason why it's 11 games. It is 11 games because that way he can still play enough games for his contract to toll and he gets all his money starting next year. So, he comes back week 12 or week 13, whenever their bye week is, right? And who does he face?
Texans.
He faces the Texans. This
It's
could
week
not,
13. So yeah.
13,
this could not be a worse look for the league if they tried.
No.
What were they doing? If it was that important that the contract had to toll, give him a 10-game suspension, double the fine, he would have taken that, and don't have him making his comeback against the Texans. It's an appalling look. Don't forget the Texans were complicit in this. They've paid off a load of people and made them sign waivers to not disclose stuff. This is an awful look for everyone. I'm not angry at the length of the suspension or the fine, even though I don't think either are big enough. I'm angry at the fact that the NFL, with all the power it actually does have, basically didn't want to drag this fight out because it's bad for PR. And that really winds me up. It's just not on. We just sweep things under the carpet and it's not okay. The only thing I could compare it to at the moment that's relevant to us sitting in this room is we're all sitting here thinking, how am I going to fuel my house this year while our government are all on holiday, not doing anything because no one's in charge anymore? It's the same thing. They just want that to sort of, we'll come back and deal with it eventually. But for now, just forget about it because we're not there. And this is a similar thing. Well, we've sort of dealt with that. So can you just forget about it and look at how great the football's going to be this season?
Yeah.
He should never be allowed to forget this, ever. And neither should the Browns, because they've made this worse.
That's the fact.
They haven't insisted that he apologise. Paul said this to us before we started, because he can't apologise because there's still an outstanding case. And so he can't really apologise. He sort of said, sorry for all the distress that's been caused, and then immediately said, I stand by my innocence. That's not an apology. That's no contrition. That is a man saying, I think I've said just enough to sidle away with this, and thanks, I'll get my money next year.
Part of the conditions of his return is he has to go to, not therapy, but like a behavioural specialist. And their report will determine whether he can come back. And I would like it if the person could, he's learnt nothing. He can't play.
They're not going to do that.
Really rich person gets a little bit punished, but not too harshly by other really rich people.
Shocker.
Like
I said this weeks ago.
Like the thing is, the reason why you get bored of it is not because we shouldn't be talking about what's wrong about what's happened, is because it's just so predictable, and because it's so predictable, like you just lose interest in having to talk about it constantly because it's just a drain on your own frustrations.
Yeah.
That this is the way that the world still works. So, you can talk about it. Yeah, our listeners can be in agreement with us that he's a complete bellend. But, at the end of the day, that is how the world works.
Yeah, miserable, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Should we take a break?
No, there's one or two more things that I want to dive into.
One, you mentioned in here in terms of, not that we have a running order of any type.
Yeah, not at all.
I want to get the opinion of you three on the Bengals the Thaddeus Moss hit on Thibodeau.
Okay, so now this I hadn't brought up only because I hadn't seen it. So I cannot...
I have, obviously. It's a legal hit.
My God, it looks awful.
How long is Thibodeau out for? Is it just part of training camps? So he's going to miss the first game?
And it's an MCL sprain,
Right.
but literally it's a cut block. So
It doesn't look great. Paul's just shown it to me.
It looks horrid,
But it's not illegal.
but it's not illegal. And Brian Dable has said, I can't moan because I tell my tight ends to do the exact same thing.
Well, that's
but-
good. That's good, honest coaching.
It's honest coaching, and fair enough.
It's unfortunate.
It's legal in the rules, and the rules aren't going to change because they're already taking away the physicality of line play. They aren't going to unless it's to the head. They aren't going to change it, and we're just going to see. Hope
You can't
more
take
more
injuries out of
knee,
the game.
more and more knee sprains because of it. But it's a bad look. But it's legal. We have to live with it.
Paul, what was your opinion on it?
That's one of our top 10 draft picks. I don't want anything to happen to him.
I also think some of the reaction about it, like Rich Eisen was like, ban him, fine him, blah, blah, blah. That's too much. Like,
Of course it
I
is.
find it very interesting that it's a lot of players coming out saying this is terrible.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I think the thing is, though, they've had lots of, over the last few years, lots of rugby coaches have gone over and worked with the NFL teams to get them to tackle better. Well, tackling better in rugby means tackle low because you can't run without your legs. Yeah, and these are big guys.
Yeah.
Take the legs away, they can't run. So
You're going to get that as a
you're
payoff.
going to get that, yeah, because
It's a
they're
trade-off for
taught.
no concussions or
They're
fewer
taught.
concussions.
You can't have it all, can you? You've got to take them. You've got to hit them somewhere.
it is,
Where
but,
do you want to hit them? In the belly? Like
Kicking the
I
balls.
would,
You can only hit them in this red belly area they've all got to wear or something. Like, it's ridiculous.
I love that idea.
I'd want
Just in the belly. They're all just belly bumping across the pitch.
but yeah, it seems especially overtly physical for a pre-season game.
I think that's the bigger thing. It's a
there's
pre-season match.
There's one thing that I saw that I didn't think about. Why the fuck are we playing our starters in pre-season like this?
Well,
Because the Bengals weren't.
Rookies need reps. This is why. But teams do play them.
Thibodeau is raw as well. Like he needs.
Oh, at least he's injured now rather than in week one.
Yeah. Give it till week 4 when he's back.
Like,
and then he
like
probably
this
can
is
do
the
it again.
NFL. This is what he's going to have to face. He needs to get his body ready and his mind ready for this. He's going to have setbacks. He's going to get injured. He needs to stop being a little pussy and get on with it.
Okay, last couple of things before the break.
I remember that when Nick Bosa's injured.
Still nothing buzz-wise regarding Beckham. Anyone got an opinion on where they think he's going to end up?
He's got to end up at the Rams, hasn't he?
Has he? I don't know.
I think
Alan Robinson's taken his spot.
I would. He's in the perfect position. He can now just wait.
Choose.
He
Who
can
might
wait.
win the Super Bowl? Look
Bills.
there, sit there for 7 weeks and go, they might win the Super Bowl.
Do you know
I'll
what?
go there for a decent deal.
Bills. He should go to the Bills. They're screaming out for another receiver to.
Well, I've also got another team that I will be previewing later that I will mention when we get to it. But I think he's basically, like you say, going to get to
Chiefs.
pick and choose. Yeah, the Chiefs. Thank
Colts. Or
Yeah.
you know,
But a potential winner, Gary's basically blown
Yeah.
it. But the Chiefs.
Sorry,
Okay,
Michael.
no, that's fine. And finally, then, Aqib Talib has stepped away from his role with Amazon after
In
he
the
was,
football non-surprise of the week.
after his brother shot and killed a man at a football practice that he was at.
yeah.
Obviously, this is a minimum an unfortunate situation. And as ever, over here, we don't understand the flagrant carrying and use of guns. But, I've seen the footage. It's just a scuffle.
The family are calling for Aqib Talib to be arrested because apparently they are claiming he threw the first punch in this whole situation, and they're saying that he instigated the whole thing. So obviously it's moved away from it being just his brother and he was there to now, a man who's not known for starting fights. Potentially being the.
This is the problem. Whether he threw the first punch or not, I don't know. But the point is, you're prepared to believe it because of who he is.
It's a shame. But
A man died.
Someone died. And it's a shame for us on a Thursday because I actually quite like Aqib Talib. I think he brings a sense of he's a pundit who actually enjoys watching the game compared to everyone else. Even like Romo now,
It's an energy, isn't it?
it's an energy, whereas everyone else, it's like you can tell they're just reading lines off a script.
Yeah, fair enough. That'll do for us for the first half. We'll be back with the AFC preview in part 2. Welcome back, and strap yourself in because somebody at the table didn't read their notes properly and may or may not have done all the research that's required for this segment.
I'm not even having this defamation. I've rechecked the messages, and I got told I could do it however I saw fit.
But you did have a specific division that you were allotted.
I may have got the division wrong. So, but, East and West, yin and yang, doesn't mean shit.
They might be playing. I don't know. Right. So we're going to take our whistle-stop tour of the AFC. We've divided the conference up. Paul has the North. John has the South. Gary has the East. And I, because Jim isn't here to grace us with his knowledge, have the West. 4 minutes per team, 4 teams per conference. John is going to attempt to keep things tight with some timings on this. We'll see if he's actually paying attention. There is one timeout per division for extended discussion that anyone may throw in. If you feel somebody's talking out their arse and you want to jump in and correct them, feel free. Equally, you might not want to jump in at all if you think it's all still very dull. Who knows? We shall see where we get to. Paul, you are first on the clock. Talk to us, please, about the greatness of the AFC North.
I was really pleased to get this division because it's a competitive division. The
Certainly.
teams were very close last year. There wasn't one outlier either way in the division. And I'm going to start with the Bengals as a team I go through. So, I mean, look, let's face it, nobody expected this team to get to the Super Bowl. We all thought Zach Taylor was going to get the chop, and I'm actually quite pleased I was wrong because they were a joy to watch in the postseason last year.
Yeah.
So, Joe Burrow finally got the chance to prove himself. So after the first kind of get drafted in the COVID year, getting injured, actually coming in, settling down, having Jamar Chase, that connection proved, dare I say the word elite.
You dare say the word elite.
So Jamar Chase, rookie season, will go down in the annals of history.
In the what?
Annals of history.
Just checking.
This is a team that's trending in the right direction, and in the entire time I've been a fan of football and a fan of the NFL, players are wanting to go to Cincinnati, and that feels interesting. So, in terms of some of the positives for them, you've got the acquisitions. The O-line has got infinitely better. So, Ted Karras coming in from the Pats at centre, that's a decent acquisition. La'el Collins coming in from the Cowboys, improve an O-line that needed improving.
Sure. Biggest weakness, really.
Absolutely. So that's now a much better area. I think they lost CJ Azoma, but they brought in Hayden Hurst.
It's like for like for me.
Exactly, yeah. In terms of not necessarily massive in yards, not one of these like Waller, Kittle, Kels types, but solid in what that team needs. So yeah, I actually wrote great like for like replacement. I also think some of the players they've retained, because if some of the other teams you've seen who've got to the Super Bowl and kind of imploded afterwards, Falcons, they lost big pieces straight away. So BJ Hill and Jesse Bates being retained are massive.
I used to go to BJ Hill when I was at school.
I was waiting.
No, I didn't know you were going to be there, to be fair.
And these are players that came up big for them. So, and not many players have left. So,
No, they've done well for retention purposes.
big Jesse, big BJ. That's what this team needed. And I think if we look in terms of kind of the negatives of
The maturity bar is low today.
Yeah.
the kind of the biggest negative I have for them is they're competent. Teams know they're competent now. This isn't a bad team. This is a team that people will now create defense based on stopping this Burrow Chase connection. They have tape. And also in terms of a mentality, they don't have that underdog spirit of, let's keep things going. They should be aiming to be one of the best teams. They should be aiming deep in the playoffs again. And it's a disappointment if they don't get there. I know that seems kind of a weird negative. The negative is they're good, but...
Expectation, isn't it?
Yeah. And this is Cincinnati that, again, the entire time I've been a fan of the NFL, and I watched Eli win his first Super Bowl against the Patriots as my first NFL game. The Bengals haven't been that great the entire time.
It's fair to say.
So I marked down the key player. So the key player for me is Joe Burrow. This team revolves around him.
Is it Joe Burrow or Joe Burrow's knee therapist?
They've made acquisitions to suit him. And there's that thing I said about the expectation that hasn't been there before. Number 1 overall draft pick should have a level of expectation, but everything I have seen shows they should be. There's an expectation on him. The only other thing I had was just a rookie to watch for each team. Believe me, the level of analysis goes down deeply team by team. So if I go slightly over on this one, it is basically, and there's the Steelers. So the rookie I got to watch is Cam Taylor-Britt, which was a cornerback they got in the 3rd round. They don't have the greatest cornerback room. He'll be getting reps early in rotation with Eli Apple. Teams will target him, and he could be under pressure right away. So I think he's the rookie to watch because that's sink or swim straight away from a 3rd round cornerback could be interesting. So that's the Bengals. Nobody time-outed me, so I think I did all right.
Yeah, I'd say so. No problem.
So the Browns.
Whoa.
So last year was disappointing. Kevin Stefanski was coach of the year going into last season.
Yep.
They got to the playoffs for the first time in ever. The media circus that comes with Baker has been replaced with... They showed the adage if there's no such thing as bad press is wrong. But this is a strong roster in a busy division. So they're a really interesting team. So looking at the positives, the defense, which is incredible in this team, has been kept together. So it's one of the best defensive fronts in the league. They got Clowney back, and Clowney and Garrett are terrifying as a twosome. You've also got great young cornerbacks. You've got Denzel Ward. You've got Greedy Williams, which is still the best name for a football player of all time, apart from DeColdis Crawford, who is advertising air conditioning. I'll show you the video afterwards. Seriously. So this defense is phenomenal. Amari Cooper coming in any other year would be huge news.
Certainly.
Except he had a shit year last year.
But he's still a top quality wideout. And he'll have to be, because he's all they have there. So him is a positive, and also a negative. The other negatives I've got are the quarterback position might be a bit ominous for them this season.
No faith in Jacoby Brissett?
Has anyone ever?
Yeah, I mean, look, he can get you 3 or 4 wins from your 10 games. He's going to be... It's possible, is what I'm saying. They don't have a particularly tricky schedule.
You could see Josh Rosen.
Josh Rosen is the current number 2. Yeah. And he is number 2.
Exactly. So those are the negatives. I think the key player for me is Amari Cooper. He needs a big season.
I would question, can he be a standout player for them with Jacoby Brissett and Josh Rosen? Like, is he able to contribute?
Jacoby Brissett he could be.
Really?
Jacoby Brissett isn't a...
He's a run-first quarterback.
But he's done fine at worse clubs than the Browns.
Yeah, he's a good placeholder.
And Amari Cooper was pretty bad Raiders for a while.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think the rookie I've got to watch for them is David Bell, who's a wideout they got in the 3rd round from Purdue. He got great stats in college, but based on the squad depth they have, he could come in and have to make an impact straight away. So he'll be one to watch for me. And I managed to go through it without saying the word Watson once, which I was quite pleased with. So the Ravens. So for me, the summary is you've got, well, thank God for the coaching and the structure within that place of good management, because the biggest enemy last year was the treatment table.
Yeah, it was unfortunate last year. Can't have a season that bad luck again, surely.
But they got a near 500 record with an injured quarterback, no running backs at all. That's impressive.
Yeah.
You'd expect a bigger season from them this year with the strength of roster, and they also drafted really well, I thought. I thought they did really well there. So the positives are, taking away actually having a former MVP fit at quarterback, this is a fucking mean defence. So you've got young high draft picks, Patrick Queen, Kyle Hamilton, and then you've got some established vets, Cole Fuller, Marlon Humphrey, Justin Houston, Marcus Peters. When I was having a look at the roster, this is one of the best cornerback rooms in the league by far. Phenomenal. So a mean defense, and they'll need it. The weakness and the negative for me is you actually need people to catch the ball, right?
You certainly find it's easier game.
In a standard NFL team, yes.
But that is a weak wideout room. Without doing any research, name a wideout there.
Rashad Bateman.
Okay, name another.
I would struggle.
I'll wait.
If I think, is Slade Bolden there?
I can make up names too.
No, he's there. I can see him. Yeah, no, it's weak, but their main playmaker is not a wideout, is he? He's a tight end.
Tight end, yeah,
But
Andrews.
I know Hollywood Brown gets his knocks, but he had a good season last year. Who you mentioned there for me is their key player, Mark Andrews. If he gets injured, their offense is screwed because he is their offense alongside Lamar. He is the safety valve for Lamar he sorely needs.
Yeah.
The rookie to watch for me is Tyler Linderbaum, their centre. They needed a centre. So for a rookie centre to come into a team and get reps straight away with a quarterback who plays jazz like Lamar does, is going to be really interesting watching that centre. So that's where I got with the Ravens.
I'm just going to quickly say they also got Daniel Falale, who is the probably the biggest man in the league. He's 6'7" and 380 pounds. He's a monster of a man. He's a Aussie tackle. Looks a bit raw. Will be a bit raw, but could be a lot of fun.
I would also point out that today the Ravens have made a massive wide receiver signing. DeMarcus Robinson from the Raiders there. Released by the Raiders and picked up immediately by the Ravens.
Massive in terms of number of
Letters in his name.
Scrabble.
You get a triple word score, you're laughing. I then have the Steelers. So the Steelers for me are a team that the first time actually feels like they're properly in transition.
Is that because you've only ever watched it like I have when they've been set at quarterback and coach?
Yeah, so they've had 2004, haven't they? So I think to be competitive in a division like this is testament to Mike Tomlin's great coaching, the team behind him. They've always had a good structure there. But I think the transition to a new way of working, will it be too much? And that's my worry with them. So the positives are they've made some stunning acquisitions on defence. So you've got Miles Jack coming in from the Jags. You've got Larry Ogunjobi coming in from the Bengals. You've got Carl Joseph coming in from various places. But you've also got established stars like Minka Fitzpatrick, TJ Watt. They are a mean defence. I think also the positives for me is seeing the reaction to Kenny Pickett so far. He's looking positive, and also the fans seem to be right behind him, which you would be if he was a college in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
But, doing well in a city and environment he knows well, with fans that love him, that could be fun to watch.
He's already one of the favourites for Offensive Rookie of the Year.
He is. Alongside, the rookie I'd say to watch is George Pickens.
Mm.
Now, injury affected him in college, but he was playing on a fantastic Georgia team. He won the college championship, but that was a stacked Georgia team, and he could really stand out because Pittsburgh always know how to draft wideouts well. I think the negatives for me with the Pittsburgh Steelers is you need an O-line, don't you? I know that Trubisky's been brought in to be more mobile. Thank God he has, because they haven't got anybody on the O-line. They've got some okay guards. This is the worst Pittsburgh O-line I've seen in a while.
Since Villanueva left, they've really struggled to build a consistent O-line. For years, they had De Castro, Villanueva, and then everyone else was built around that. Pouncey at centre, and now it's sliding around. As many teams do, they've struggled in transition on the O-line because it's not just about one player plugging in like you can at wide receiver. You can't upgrade immediately. You've got to get the whole line working as a group. And it's odd that so many teams struggle with it so badly.
And I think Steelers could struggle with this. It's good they've got mobility at quarterback, and the shadow of Big Ben is finally lifted. But they're going to be a fun team to watch. Now, I was asked to rank the division, wasn't I?
Yes.
Yeah, you got to rank them off. Yeah.
Luckily, I'm quite skilled at that. So, off the top of my head, and I didn't put any planning into this, I wanted to go with gut feeling.
Well, that's bad for you usually, but go on.
I've got sound bites and everything for that. So, I'm going to say the Bengals will win the division.
Shock.
I'd say that you then get. It should be. It's gonna be Bengals, Ravens, Browns, Steelers.
Oh, really?
Can I put my 2 cents in?
Yeah.
I'm going to go Ravens, Steelers, Bengals, Browns.
I think the Browns will finish last.
Yeah.
I think the rest of it's pretty open.
The rest of it, I reckon it's a really exciting. I think they could all, apart from the Browns, I think they could all be winning records because they were pretty knocked up teams last year, and like the Ravens were 1 win away.
I have a question for you, Paul. Do you think that despite his problems over the last couple of years, the loss of Ben Roethlisberger is the biggest challenge faced by Mike Tomlin in his tenure in Pittsburgh?
No, it's the O-line.
Okay.
It's the O-line supporting it because Ben was good, but he had a class O-line in front of him. That offense is going to have a challenge, and they're going to need to get the ball out quickly.
They did have a year without Ben,
Yes.
through injury, and they finished with
They made the playoffs, didn't they?
I think they finish.
They finished with a winning
missed.
record.
They finished with a winning record, but missed the playoffs.
Yes.
Rudolph, the red-faced quarterback.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was him. Okay, well,
So you want to know what's going to pick Paul's pocket?
yeah, I want to know what bet you're throwing out to us.
Right. What I'm going to go for, and bear in mind the amount of bets I'm going to make, I ain't going to put a 5 on each one. You ruin me. There's an energy crisis coming, for God's sake. Can I start with £1?
You can start with £1. That's fine.
The Bengals are going to win at least 12 games.
Ooh, at least 12. So,
At least
so
12.
you're setting it really at over 12. You want to go 12 and a half.
If the Bengals, I'd like,
The line is 12 and a half.
they're going to win 12 games or more.
12 games or more.
So the line is 12.
The line is 12.
I'll take that bet.
Accord.
Accord.
Gary? I mean, silence is bad. On the podcast.
No, I don't think they'll win 12 games. I'll take that bet. You can try and win some of your money back.
I
Not in that division.
think they are due for regression. I don't think they win more than 10 games this season.
Accord.
Paul's like Jim will definitely take that bet. So that's another £4 you've lost.
I'll message him while we go through the next division.
Yeah.
Okay, well, the next
And I also need to keep track of these.
you
don't
do.
I?
You better be
So
writing them down.
picking Paul's pocket, do you want one for each division?
Everybody's going to throw one out, so we're all going to throw them at you now as we get to our divisions, and you can decide whether or not you're taking us and everyone else up on these bets.
Okay.
I see Gary didn't read that either. Right, John, over to you. You drew out of the hat the AFC South, and you were pleased with the AFC South. You said, "This is what I was hoping for. It's what I wanted. It's a delight." Why is that?
Because I love misery. And man, this has been miserable. So I'm going to start with the Titans because they won it last year. Basically, the only team in this division that didn't disappoint, within reason. It's bizarre to think that actually, without a lot of they didn't have a great wide receiver room. They had AJ Brown. They had such bad injury issues. They still were the number one seed in the AFC.
People seem to have forgotten that.
Yeah. I do think they're in for regression because I think just other teams have got better. I think that there's going to be regression to I think a lot of the talk at the moment is about Tannehill. I still think the tales of the end of Tannehill are overrated.
Sounds like a terrible book.
The tales of the end of Tannehill.
Well, yeah, but I mean, he had a really bad.
The playoff game.
The playoff game started and ended badly.
Terrible intersections, first and last passes of the game.
Yeah, exactly. But the rest of it was
not his fault.
Not his fault. It's all going to depend, I still think, on Henry. He's back from his injury because the wideout room is still not good enough. They've got rid of AJ Brown's gone to Philadelphia, and they've replaced him with Treylon Burks and Robert Woods. I think we've gone out over previous years. Robert Woods is a talented receiver.
I think it's an upgrade. I think Robert Woods is an upgrade.
Especially
a hungry Robert Woods.
I don't know if it's an upgrade, but Treylon Burks and Robert Woods over AJ Brown and Julio. I think
Julio was nothing last
Julio,
week.
exactly, yeah. I think what worries me is Treylon Burks, but Robert Woods, I think, should be so great.
Robert Woods is the combination of the two players you're saying they've just replaced. He is good enough to replace both of their production.
But he's coming off an ACL.
This is the
problem.
Are you suggesting Robert Woods is better than AJ Brown?
I'm suggesting in this team...
Sorry, I'm going to have to call a timeout on you, because that is utter bullshit.
I'm suggesting in this team, with the other weapons they've got, I think Robert Woods could have a massive season.
Better than AJ Brown and Julio put together.
Last year's Julio.
Last year's Julio plus AJ Brown.
Yeah.
You think Robert Woods,
I think Robert Woods
coming off an injury, is better than AJ Brown?
I think...
Is this Griff's mad bet?
No, it's
Like
not.
that
But
is-
I think in this team this season, if the Titans are going to be successful, I think Robert Woods has got to have 1,500 yards.
I was literally busy doing my research, and when you said that, I had to get involved.
I like
It's just crazy. Like, AJ Brown is in most people's top 10 wide receivers. Rob Woods is a very good wide receiver, and he should be a wide receiver one, and hasn't always been that in his career.
Yeah.
But he's also a very good blocking wide receiver as well.
Let's say
There's no
though,
way he's as good as AJ
let's
Brown.
say AJ Brown is the number 8, 9 or 10 wide receiver in the league. Are you telling me Robert Woods is less than 13, 14, 15?
20.
I don't think so. I think if he'd have been fit last year,
I think if
he'd
he-
have been amazing.
I don't agree.
2 years ago...
When you start listing them, Debo, Cup, Jamar Chase,
Well, 2 years ago...
Devontae Adams, you just keep going and going and going. I'm sorry.
I wouldn't have started with Debo.
Well, Debo's not
He's
better.
not an out-and-out wide receiver.
He's not better than Woods.
He will get more yards and touchdowns because he does everything.
Jefferson.
I think
I
Robert
can-
Woods
I can
is.
keep going,
I think
but-
Robert Woods is as good as a lot of these players.
No.
I'd say 2 years ago, we weren't sure who was the star
Woods and Cup.
At the Rams, Woods and Cup. It happened that Cup exploded. But
Didn't just get full. It exploded.
But
But a lot of that is because Woods wasn't available.
Woods wasn't available, and but the thing is with this team, the struggles in the offense, I don't think is really going to be the downside of this team. It's all about how they're going to stop the other teams from scoring, and the defense is still going to be great. I mean, it's just full of stars. They were great, and they'll pound it in with Derrick Henry, and if he's not there, they'll sorry, I just wanted to make Griff smile, but it will be fine. I'm sure that I think there's still going to be a decent season, just not as good as last year. But I think that's possibly due to the return to the mean of some other teams, such as the Ravens and stuff like that. But yeah, it's the Tennessee Titans. Fine, that's pretty much all I can say. Colts, really disappointed last year.
Disappointed, but were you surprised?
Not at all.
Thank you.
So the main question coming out of the end of last season was how much of it was on Wentz, and basically he's the fall guy. Whether you believe it was all, but Matt Ryan is an upgrade on Carson Wentz.
Huge upgrade.
You know,
how many games did the Falcons win last year? 6. 6 games they won.
yeah.
They were utterly dross.
Oh,
We
they
saw
were
them, they were dross.
abysmal.
Matt Ryan played out of his skin. I know it was the first time he hadn't gone 4,000 yards in a season. Or, 4,000 yards in a season.
Yeah.
It wasn't far off. On a terrible, terrible
He only
team.
had Kyle Pitts and Cordell Patterson. He made Cordell Patterson a star. That's how good he is.
True.
And this year he's got Jonathan Taylor coming off a breakout year. Pittman Jr. Oh, I don't want to know. Pittman Jr. is... We're going to see if Pittman Jr. is as good.
He is as good.
Is as good as people say he
He's
is.
almost as good as Robert Woods.
Let's not go that far. Paris Campbell
He's not as good.
is not as good, but he has shown promise with, some ropey quarterbacks,
What do you think about Michael Pittman?
Michael Pittman has a lot of potential. I'm yet to see him as a wide receiver one.
Very, very talented
But-
player.
He has had Wentz and old as bones Philip Rivers. And with Matt Ryan, it's the first time he's had a competent quarterback. So with that, as well, you've got Kikikuti there to add to
Draft legend.
Kiki Coot.
Alec Pierce, their first pick, a wide receiver. If he should be able to complement that wide receiver room, and suddenly the Colts be able to throw the ball as well as just pound it down the middle with Jonathan Taylor. We should also mention Jelani Woods
Yes, we should.
Oh, man.
to add to their tight end room.
Did you and Paul do your research together?
No, but
He knows what the people want to hear.
on defense, they've added Stephen Gilmore, who is going to start the season injured. Shaquille Leonard, of course, is starting the season injured. But there's enough there for them to get through that time. And, this is my pick for winning the division, the Colts, because the defense should be good enough. They flattered, quite frankly. They flattered to see at the end of the season. But the only thing that worries me is the defensive coordinator has obviously gone on to become the head of disappointment in Chicago, and they've replaced him with Gus Bradley.
I know, but he's actually a very good defensive coordinator. He's just a terrible head coach.
So, yeah.
Quickly, I can't jump in with the timeout because Gary already did that earlier in this division to laugh at me, which is fine. Do you think if they don't finish in the playoffs, Frank Reich is in trouble?
He's gone.
Anyone else?
No, I agree with you. It'd be the end of the 3-year Reich.
They brought his guy in for quarterback and they failed. If they fail this year, there's very little more they can do.
Fair enough.
It's the Reich experiment has failed.
Again.
Texans,
Shall we move on?
bizarrely, who were third last year, got 4 wins. They'll be lucky to get there again. It's not,
You don't think Lovie Smith's got this going?
Lovie Smith has a cursed appointment here, isn't it? It's the guy before him, whose name has suddenly
David Culley.
Tells
you how influential he was.
But to get 4 wins out of that dross, quite frankly, great.
Well, he earned a contract that they didn't give him.
Yeah, Lovie Smith, he will add some. Hopefully, will bring in some more, some defensive solidity again. They've got, that's Derek Stingley Jr. He's an exciting cornerback. First pick in the draft. I mean, it's hard to look for stars in this team. Laramie Tunsil's still there because
It's hard to be a star when the quarterbacks you're protecting are not that good.
Is that Davis Mills? No one expected anything from him, quite frankly. The thing that may be his downside this year is expectation, because he's coming in now as number one. The number twos are Carl Allen and Jeff Driscoll, so nobody's. But he did enough to earn another season to prove he's NFL quality, and I mean he wasn't the worst wide quarterback in that team as well. He's still got Brandon Cooks.
There's
1,000-yard receiver, Brandon Cooks.
They've Chris Conley, fine.
500-yard receiver.
Nico Collins, is coming.
Are they in a position to make use of all these weapons? Like, you've already said they'll be lucky to get to 4 wins. I think they can go better than that. I think they can go 6. But Davis Mills, like Paul was saying earlier, has now put some things on tape for people to see. No one knew Davis Mills.
Yeah.
Is there a better chance of regression or progress for Davis Mills?
It's probably going to be regression, because he can't have another season of, who the fuck's this guy? Like, literally, we know he's the starter, that he has now expectation on him. It's a shame, because it's sort of the mismanagement of the Texans has meant that this is upon him.
I really like Davis Mills.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be good this year.
I mean, I hope so. The running back room is brilliant if you're in 2019. Rex Burkhead, Royce Freeman, Marlon Mack. Damian Pierce is the rookie, 4th rounder.
He has to shine.
If you're in fantasy, might be worth a flyer.
He has to shine. If he doesn't, they've got no run game this year.
Yeah.
I like Marlon Mack, but
Marlon Mack has shown talent in his past, but he's not shown it for 2 years. But yeah, Jacksonville.
Woo! Come on, be positive about it.
New head coach
Doug Peterson.
Urban Meyer is now going to TV. I think he's...
By the way, after all the crap we've had to deal with he who shall not be named in this offseason, doesn't Urban Meyer sound like a breath of fresh air?
Yeah.
All he got was a lap dance.
Well, he's...
He also hit some players.
He kicked his kicker.
He kicked his kicker, but really, the thing that got him sacked was, lap dances. He wasn't giving lap dances.
No, he was fingering women in a bar with his face on the wall.
Let's not go. Let's talk about Jacksonville this season rather than go on.
Yeah, go on. Sorry.
So, Trevor Lawrence, I think, is due for a... Speak into the mic, please, Paul. No, I don't. I think they're on for a better year, because it can't get fucking worse. Trevor Lawrence showed at the end of this last season that there's the player that we thought that was going to be, but he was getting better. That he wasn't the sort of potential bust that he looked in week 8. Travis Etienne coming back is huge.
Big one.
That running back with him and James Robinson.
I don't say this often, but go and pick him up in your fantasy. Travis Etienne's going to be massive this season.
I got him in my work league. I was very happy with his pickup. There's a lot about the wide receiver. They've had to pay quite a lot of money for some very average players. So Zay Jones and Christian Kirk have come in for a lot of money.
I forgot about the Christian Kirk contract. They get like 10 million or 11 million or something, don't they?
I think he's on 18.
18
more than that,
million.
yeah.
18 million.
Can we forget Zay Jones had a nude fight with his own brother covered in blood?
Yes.
Every time.
But
you don't let us forget, ever.
But that should never be forgotten.
But those two coming into a whiteout room with Marvin Jones, who he has his detractors because of fantasy. He was at Lions for too long. He is a consistent wide receiver. He's just what Trevor Lawrence needed. He was also the leader in the locker room basically last year. He was the one that started the getting Urban Meyer out.
He threatened to walk out.
Yeah.
He's a red zone threat. He always has been.
And Laviska Shenault was a really cool, tricky player the year before, and then Urban Meyer seemingly forgot who he was. So Evan Ingram's come in to maybe show that there was a player there after all. I think it's good for him to get out of New York. They paid a lot of money to Cam Robinson on the line, but they have also brought in Brandon Scherf from the Commanders at guard. That will help Lawrence. Defense, Trayvon Walker, obviously, and Devin Lloyd from the draft. Hope can try and bring back the days of Saxonville. I don't think they're that good.
There's some way off that, I'm afraid.
There's some way off that. Especially the secondary is, quite frankly, not as good as those days. But I think an up year, in my mind, it's Colts, Titans, Jags, Texans. I think Colts and Titans make playoffs.
I would have you right there. I think that's a fair assessment.
Just give us the crazy bet.
Trevor Lawrence to get more than 22 touchdowns.
I don't know if that's that crazy this season.
Not that crazy.
Ain't crazy at
25.
Oh
No, that's not crazy enough.
yeah.
I think 30 is a more crazy number.
Give me something left
25.
field.
How many did he get last year? Touchdowns? 11.
No, about 19, didn't he? Yeah, I'm sure he did, didn't he?
I don't know, but
I'm just looking it up because I think if you think he got 19, I think you're a fucking idiot.
I don't think he
He got like 4 in one game, didn't he?
I don't know, but I would if he only got
12
Oh, sorry. There you go.
for 17 interceptions.
Right. So you want him if he doubles.
I want him to double his touchdowns.
So you think he will definitely score 25 or more?
25 or more.
I will take you at that. He does not score 25 or more because a lot of them are going to be going to be runs.
Yeah.
So
I agree with John. I'm not taking that bet.
okay, I'll take that. I'll take that. By the way, Marvin Jones last season 832 yards and 4 touchdowns. Not bad for a bit part player. Effectively, that's what he's seen
A
as.
third of his total.
Well, this is the thing. Like he's a massively underrated player.
Yeah.
Paul, are you taking the bet?
I say he doesn't.
So that's you and I,
Accord.
and we'll see what Jim says.
Jim says he will.
What, score more than 25?
He says he'll get 25. He also thinks the Bengals won't win 12 games.
Yeah,
Jim's with me so far.
yeah. Fair enough. Right. Next up, then, Gary and his well-researched AFC East.
How terrified do I look?
You're pretty terrified, but it's all right. We'll help out.
This is fun. It's
Somebody misread the group text and thought he was doing the AFC West.
I believe misread would be...
Didn't read.
Yeah.
I live in the past. Let's not talk about this. We've just got to move forward. So, obviously, this is one of our favourite divisions, which we talk about a lot, having a Patriots fan on the podcast.
It's going to be fun this year.
So, we'll start with the Bills, where you should start in this division.
Should.
At the top. And they look even better than they did last year. I think it's a really important year for the Bills, if I'm honest, because I think soon they're going to have to really start thinking about how their roster works moving forward, because the Josh Allen contract will start to take more effect over the next couple of years, and it's going to start to cause them some issues with how they balance that roster. Because right now, I think it's clear to most people that it is the strongest roster in the NFL if you just look at every position. So when you look at what they've brought in this off-season as well, some really strong moves. So Von Miller will really help their defense with some dynamism. You know, that's a great signing, isn't it, to get? You saw the difference he made last season.
Yeah, of course.
OJ Howard, so another outlet. He hasn't done great, OJ Howard, the last couple of years. But
It's all potential with OJ Howard.
just helps. And I think with what Josh Allen does with the ball again, it's just good for him to have two
good
very
blocker
good
as well.
tight ends.
That's what they want him for.
And that will help with the O-line. They've also brought in a really clever backup quarterback in Case Keenum. So we always like to see Case Keenum back in the league. And they've probably gone and addressed probably the biggest issue in their current kind of roster issues, which was literally running back. So in the draft, they took Cook,
Yep.
who looks very, very good. I think he'll probably become the lead back, actually.
They need him to become the lead back,
Yeah.
but don't have a lead back.
And I think that's going to be really, really important because if that team doesn't mature, they're going to be this, perennial team that doesn't quite win the Super Bowl, and then all of a sudden starts to lose pieces upon
like
pieces.
they were
upon
in the
pieces.
early 90s.
Exactly like that. And we have to remember, they still haven't made it to a Super Bowl yet. And the AFC is so tough. You've got to be at the top of your game to get there. So I think they're really set up well in this division, which is going to be a much tougher division this year. So their schedule's still quite kind to them as well this year, which is quite interesting. They've got quite a hard schedule in the first kind of 6 to 7 weeks, but after that they play pretty much dross until week 17. So they might struggle start of the season, but you're still looking at a really strong record. So I think they've managed through the draft and through free agency to really go after the bits they needed. Bit of a risk around the O-line. So they've had a bit of a strategy where they just kind of, there's no stars. When you think about the O-line at the Bills, you don't kind of go, right, yeah, they've got, Trent Williams, or they haven't got anyone you go, wow. Like that, Josh Allen's being protected because he moves around the pocket so well. He doesn't have to be. But what they have is loads of very average linemen. The problem with that is sometimes they're slightly above average, but what we saw last season was lots of times and key times they became very below average, especially when you get into playoff football. Now, for me, the big issue for this Bills team is whether they can actually transition into a championship winning team rather than just a very great regular season team that struggles when they come up against those really tough defences. So I think that's going to be really important. This could be the lowest graded O-line that he plays behind so far in his career, which puts a lot of emphasis on Josh Allen to do everything.
Can Josh Allen get away with continually being a runner, or is it an injury waiting to happen?
That's why James Cook needs to become this runner. If you've got James Cook and Singletary doing something, then all of a sudden you're okay. If it's all about Josh Allen and Singletary only turning up 6 games of the season, then it's a problem. So that draft pick was very important and will be key. And I also liked their pick of Keir Elam as well in the draft as well. So I think they've added really well with where their roster was at. There isn't really much more you can do with this Bills roster because it already looks to be superb. So there's not really a lot of obvious holes on this roster that I can see.
This is one of the best teams in the NFL.
One of the best built rosters we've seen in the last 5 years.
Yeah. So I haven't really got much more to say.
No, fair enough.
Try and keep it.
Carry on.
So we can get to bed. Not
together. Yeah.
So I think we should probably talk about my favourite subject next, which is the Patriots. Now, it's only my favourite subject because I think this year you're going to get worse. Now, there's a few reasons for this when you actually think about it and break it down.
I love the way he's looking at me like I'm playing for him this year.
Yeah.
I'm coaching the special
but,
teams.
It's part of you, isn't it? So you feel the pain the same way.
I do, yeah.
So I think there's a few issues. So Josh McDaniels is obviously gone, and we know that Belichick isn't very positive in his mannerisms or thinkings or anything. So, like the offense, we don't know who's coaching what still, do we? It's all just
Patricia and Joe Judge. We don't know. It seems to be Patricia that they're leaning towards.
So it seems a bit of a strange setup. You've got a quarterback that's new in, and I'm guessing they'll keep running the same old stuff. But they're going to just keep running the same stuff.
They're dressing it up differently. They're trying to make it look different. But I think you're right.
But when you look, I've been trying to look through, during my research in the last 15 minutes, like kind of the key players they've signed in the off-season. And the only person I wrote down was Devontae Parker.
Yeah.
That was it. I couldn't find anyone else.
Number 1 WR2.
They've received that, they've signed on some other players, re-signed them, but they're very little. You've lost so much talent from your defence. It's clearly going to be the worst defence that, in terms of talent, that Belichick's ever had to work with.
Yeah, I agree.
Mac Jones we knew was the most NFL ready, didn't we? So
yes.
So you've lost McDaniels. Mac Jones, we've probably seen him much closer to his ceiling than all the other rookies from last year. Without his offensive coordinator, you could see him move slightly backwards.
Yeah, sure.
You've lost James White, And you just kind of go, well, how is that going to all play out? So your defence isn't going to scare teams. Your offence looks a little bit disjointed without kind of really any idea of what it's going to do, other than some dump-off throws to potentially a running back. I'm not allowed to say dump-off now, no?
I wouldn't, no. It'll elicit a laugh if you do.
I think it's just, Damien Harris really came through, didn't he, last year? And he is going to be almost the most important player for your
Stevenson
team
as well, the two of them together.
If those two, they're going to have to carry Mac Jones.
Yeah.
Not carry, that sounds harsh, not carry, but I just don't see much at wide receiver.
They have to take the weight off him.
It's, Parker has just flattered to deceive year after year after year. And I don't know, you just don't seem to want to invest in the right places. I'm not sure what the direction of the team is right now. And they're the Patriots, and we keep saying they're the Patriots. But, you went, back to, what was it, 10-7 last year?
Yep.
So, it was an improvement. But you've also got one of the top 5 hardest schedules. So you and the Dolphins both sit in the top 5 hardest schedules this year. And in previous years, you've had some pretty easy schedules because your division has been not great. Now, that's changed as well. So before, the Patriots, they had a guaranteed 5 divisional victories every season.
10 wins without doubt,
Yeah, just like, just easy, wasn't it? It was just easy because you get 5 from the division, 5 against some easy spots on the schedule, and you haven't really got to do a lot to make the playoffs. And this year, I just don't see that being the case. I think the Dolphins are so close to where you are, and the work that they've done this off-season is going to really put a lot of pressure. You could see 3 teams come out of this division, and that might be what saves you. But I think in the AFC...
Yeah, it's going to be tough. I don't think 3 teams come out of this division. Tyquan Thornton getting injured at wide receiver, he was comfortably our quickest wide receiver, and I think that's a problem. The downfield play is going to struggle again.
That's not really your play, is it?
No.
But I think...
But it would have been interesting to have one, because I think they selected him knowing that Tyreek was going to be at the Dolphins. We needed a fast player down the field. We've got Aguilar, who is now the fastest player, but doesn't have the hands. Just doesn't have the hands.
Yeah.
And I think he was going to get cut.
And the only thing I think that keeps you kind of really close to the Dolphins is that consistency. Consistency of coaching, consistency of playbook, consistency of, methodology, all this kind of stuff is all the stuff that's going to keep you in the game. But when you look at the roster, like Belichick is going to have to work some real magic this season.
It's a poor roster. The best that we can hope for out of the roster is that the 2 tight ends we signed this time last season suddenly show up and as the players they are.
And then in flip of that, when you move on to the Dolphins...
In flipper of that, yeah.
In flipper of that, very nice. When you move on to the Dolphins, and I started writing down all the players that the Dolphins had signed, I got a little bit excited. And...
Clean up on aisle 1.
But... If they can get Tua working, actually, they've added some ridiculously good players to that team and some experience as well. Not just kind of, they're promising or from the draft, like players that you can just plug in and go, right, I'm happy with that. So you go through the list of what they've signed in the offseason. Sonny Michel, Melvin Ingram, Tyreek Hill, Teddy Bridgewater, Chase Edmonds, Williams, the guard, and Mostert. Like, every single one of those players...
was great 3 years ago.
Well, no, they're not, though, are they? Chase Edmonds, yes, actually...
We've just described earlier this podcast that Chase Edmonds... Well, you were big on Chase Edmonds. I think Chase Edmonds is shit. But
Chase Edmonds had a good season last year, didn't he? I think you're getting him mixed up with Kenyon Drake, who we compared to Chase Edmonds.
I get your point with this. The Dolphins have clearly improved.
Like the Dolphins, when you've got Chase Edmonds and Raheem Mostert versus whatever they had last year.
All right. I'm throwing in the timeout because it doesn't matter because Tua won't play the majority of the games. If they cannot get the best out of Tua, it will not matter.
But their O-line has definitely improved as well. So their O-line's improved. Tua is not going to be what makes or breaks this team. As long as he can get the ball 8 yards to Tyreek Hill or round the corner to Sonny Michel, like you do not need Tua to be
Okay, so why did
to
the
be
Patriots
Kyler Murray.
why did the Patriots let Sonny Michel go?
Fumbles or
No,
dropping the ball.
he gets injured and he's not a great
Asbestos
blocker.
knees.
Yeah. Okay, so there's that. Tyreek Hill, yeah, you're right. He makes a lot of yards after the catch, but not from 8-yard throws. You've still got to throw it 15 yards to get him open in the middle of the field. Tua can't do that.
But the connection that they've seen so far,
Yeah.
like I say, I'm not saying that that they are kind of like crazy good, the Dolphins. But in terms of when you look at the division, how it's going to play out, right? So you're probably going to say the Bills are going to win, 11 games?
Minimum.
11, 12 games. And then I think both the Patriots and the Dolphins could both easily win 8 or 9 games.
Yeah.
Yeah, just over 500. But that's moved the Dolphins into contention for a wild card spot now.
They went 9-8 last year, didn't they?
Yeah. But they could, but...
No, I agree, but I think Tua does make or break this team, and I think if they feel they're in the hunt for the playoffs and Tua's holding them back, I think they'll have no hesitation to drop him. That's why they've signed Teddy. It's almost like for like, but Teddy's less of a risk. And I think that's if you look at Tua and Mac Jones, they are virtually the same player. It's just Mac Jones is more consistent.
Yeah.
So far. Which I grant you. And he could, I agree, he could well regress without Josh McDaniels. And then they would actually be the same player. And that is the difference here. So, yes, there's a lot of surrounding weapons, but if you don't get Tua working, they might as well be the roster the Patriots have got.
Yeah, but then I think they've got more better pieces than the Patriots have got.
Yeah.
That's the point. And I think it will come down to coaching then, whether they can get close to the Patriots. Because when you purely look at the rosters, the Dolphins have got a better roster now than the Patriots.
Yes, agreed. Have they got a good as head coach?
That's the point. It comes down to other factors as to where they... And like when you look at it, like I say, I can't really separate those two teams.
No, it's really
so
hard.
the Bills look like they're an easy runaway team for the division. They should be. They should really be contending this year. Because even when you look across the... and you're going to come onto it in a second, when you look at teams like the Chiefs, they haven't... Everybody in the AFC hasn't all improved this year. The Broncos, the Broncos have probably improved, but we'll just wait and see. And then the last one,
everybody's favourite team
is the Jets. So Paul is completely wrong about the Jets. They will finish bottom of this division. And again, like the Jets did loads of really good stuff in the draft, and again, that's the bit of the unknown with this team. The defence will definitely have improved massively. I think you're going to really see a much more aggressive defence this year. When you look at who they've gone and got through the draft and even from kind of free agency. So they brought in Solomon Thomas. So Salah would have known him from the Niners. They've also got Carl Lawson, who they signed last year, who was expected to do really good things before he had an Achilles injury. So he's going to be back. Then you've got Sauce Gardner. And you've got Jermaine Johnson. Sauce Gardner's also a great name as well.
It is a great name.
So when you just look at those 4 pieces immediately, as well as Salah having extra time with that defence is going to really kind of put a lot of pressure on whoever they play. The problem you have is that although they've got a pretty decent offensive line, or they did have until it fell apart a week ago, it looked like their offensive line was building.
Dwayne Brown's a decent slot him, but
it just doesn't seem to me that the offense has got enough going for it. I just don't see how they win games. You can't. Defenses win. We all know they win games and win championships, but I don't think their defense is going to jump that far that it's going to suddenly start winning them games. It might keep them much more competitive, but I still don't see the Jets winning more than 5 or 6 games this season.
I disagree with you completely on this.
We know that.
I think the Jets have been really smart in what they've been doing. You could argue every part of their offense has improved. Their line has improved. Wilson has experience.
I like Garrett Wilson.
Better tight end, better wideouts. Elijah Moore in a second season. Breece Hall coming in at running back. Every part of the offense has improved.
I think it's very much like the Dolphins. I think where the Dolphins, the major question mark is probably going to be Tua. At the Jets, it's Shagger Wilson. And whether he can...
He's the lover, man.
The only thing I would say is at the Jets, there is a lot more rookies.
Yeah.
There's a lot more rookies that you're going to have to rely on. You haven't, gone and
Who's
got a
the running
Mel.
back you just mentioned? Brees
Hall.
Brees Hall. Did you see what his stat line was the other day? 7 rushes for 1 yard. It's going well.
But
It's the same as I've got.
So
There's a measurement we used to use for that.
I suppose my point would be is Garrett Wilson might be Tyreek Hill, but we don't know that yet.
Yeah.
And Melvin Ingram versus Sauce Gardner. Gardner might be as good as Melvin Ingram, but he might not be. So you're talking about talent and building. I think what the Jets have done is great for their future this summer, but I'm not sure you'll see that transpire straight into this season. Especially they're starting the season with some uncertainty, injured quarterback, etc. And, momentum's a massive thing as well. And if they get off to a bad start, this division is definitely tougher than it has been for a number of years. I think the Jets will be closer, which is why I think the teams in the middle will struggle a little bit this season.
I think this is one of, if not the most competitive division in the league.
Well, I think
I'm not
Michael's about
sure.
to-
I'm not sure it is because the Bills will be so much better than everyone else.
But you could argue, and I'm not going to argue Jets are going to make the playoffs. I want to make that very clear. But I think the Jets have a case to not finish fourth. And I made a bet previously this year around that.
You did. I'm going to enjoy spending that money. So
What is your bet for the division?
Well, do you want my prediction of order first then?
Yeah, I'll take that. And then I want
so
pick in
Bills.
Paul's pocket.
So
Yep.
Bills first. Dolphins second. Patriots third. Jets last.
Wrong.
Come on, pick Paul's pocket. What are we doing?
What are we doing crazy bet-wise?
It's your
Your
choice.
bet,
Come
your
on.
choice.
Your
Yeah.
choice.
I've already done this division.
I'll do one for Michael.
Okay.
All right. Tua will start more than 13 games.
More than 13. So
More than
14 games.
14 games.
Oh, yeah. He won't. I'll take that. That's £1.
Accord.
There's no way. There's no way. He just won't. He's not that good, and he never stays fit. Okay, that is over to me.
Yes,
for
West.
the AFC West. I'm last and least. I shall prefix the AFC West by saying this is the most competitive division in football.
Wrong.
But when I did my research for this division,
You
I
thought
also
you were doing the
thought that
AFC
was
West.
same, yeah.
I will also begin with a little synopsis of all 4 teams together. All 4 teams have Pro Bowl quarterbacks. We have 2 quarterbacks who have won Super Bowls. We have 2 quarterbacks who you wouldn't laugh if I told you they could win Super Bowls. Like, that's a genuine thing. So, 4 contenders from the off. Head coaching could well be what separates the teams in this division this season. Andy Reid, perennially underrated, but one of the best coaches in the league. His time management is terrible. We know this. But other than that, he's a genius on the offense.
Yeah.
So let's grant him that. Elsewhere in this division, less so. I like Brandon Staley. I think what he's done to unify the Chargers has been excellent. Let's not forget they did not get across the line last season with an extremely talented team. So he has that hanging around him. It's a bit like a less extreme version of Cliff Kingsbury. You've got all the talent and you're not quite getting it done. So I just want to see how he grows from there. And then the other 2, and you know my feeling on first-time coaches and quarterbacks and everything else, they're under a lot of pressure straight away. Nathaniel Hackett has been effectively calling plays with one of the best players we've ever seen. So he's got to show me something before I believe that it's partly down to him.
This the guy who looks like a bollock.
Yes, he looks like a boiled
He
ball.
does look like a ball.
And apparently used to be a rapper.
Yeah, and he also made remarks about Russell Wilson's wife and how attractive she was. And he got very nervous. But that's fine. Ciara is an attractive lady.
She is.
But I want to see what he gives us before I think he's worth any credit. Equally, Josh McDaniels. Now, I know from having watched very closely the Patriots what he brings as a coordinator. Do you remember what happened when he was head coach of the Broncos? Which, by the way, is 12 years ago.
Yeah. It was disappointing.
Do you remember why he got fired?
Sex scandal.
No. They got fired.
Why? Who got fired?
Josh McDaniels, when he was in charge of the Broncos.
Over reliance on Tebow.
No, although Tebow's failures didn't help. But don't forget they did win a playoff game with
Did
Tebow.
he just sit in the corner going, I wish I was at the Patriots, I wish I was at the Patriots.
back,
Bill.
Close enough.
Because that's what happened when he accepted a job for 2 days and then cried like a little
No,
bitch.
the final nail in the coffin was his team were caught filming the walkthrough practices of the 49ers.
Of course they fucking were.
Who does that sound like? I'm just saying, McDaniel's got a lot to prove as the head coach. I think it's an interesting appointment. But he's got enough credit in the bank again to get time. So the obvious standout here is Andy Reid.
In many ways.
Well, yeah. So I'll start the teams with the Chiefs for that very reason. They need to put last season's playoff disappointment behind them. Don't forget they were 21-3 up on the Bengals and they lost, which is unheard of for the Chiefs.
It's usually the other way around.
Yeah, well, Joe Burrow went full Pat Mahomes. Post Tyreek Hill, they have a lot riding on some very interesting players. Juju Smith-Schuster did not produce last season in the contract year, did he? I mean, yes, he had Ben Roethlisberger thrown to him, and yes, he's a better player than we saw last year.
He had injury issues, didn't
Yep,
he?
but he had a lot riding on it. Marquez Valdez-Scantling has been inconsistently producing with one of the best quarterbacks we've ever seen.
But I think one of the best quarterbacks I've ever seen who don't throw the ball to him.
But didn't throw the ball to him because he didn't feel he was good enough. So I think it's a different attitude with Patrick Mahomes, but I'm just saying there's your two receivers to start with. That you're replacing Tyreek Hill, remember? So
there's a reason Chris Conley and DeMarcus Robinson have got contracts.
yes, there is. So just bear with me. The third one up on the wide receiver grouping. Anyone want to tell me?
Sky Moore?
No. Josh Gordon.
Oh, God, yeah.
Josh Gordon is on the list at number 3. Number 4.
Nicole Hardman.
No.
He's currently injured anyway.
Yeah. Corey Coleman.
Fuck
Did he
off.
turn up from the Browns?
Yeah, well, from not being employed.
Yeah.
Corey Coleman is there at the moment. Yeah, there are other names. That's
He
fine.
was talented before he became,
He was a tosser.
There's an NFC East team that's begging for him to be cut by them.
Look, all I'm saying is I don't know if any of those names are replacing the production you'd get from Tyreek. You're relying on Patrick Mahomes elevating any of those players.
Or getting Beckham when he's fit.
Yeah, or getting Beckham when he's fit, which is where I was going. I still think there's an opportunity for him to come and play for a contender.
It feels like Moneyball style thing. You're not replacing Tyreek Hill. You're replacing the yards of Tyreek Hill with 4 or
Multiple
5 players.
Yeah, that's fine. So for that to work, that gets to my next point, is last season was a very good year for Patrick Mahomes. It was also his worst season as a professional quarterback. Anybody see any reason why he won't recover and probably be in the top 2 quarterbacks for most statistical things this season? Because I think he will. I just think he will.
I think he will. I'm not sure his movement is quite as good as it was 2 years ago.
I think he was struggling last year.
Yeah, I think there was
Obviously,
injury issues.
He's had injuries, hasn't he? And I don't know. Is he as... The more you get hit, the less you want to run outside the pocket.
Yeah.
Especially when you're only about... He's not the biggest Mahomes. He's not a Josh Allen. He's not huge. He's not Kyler Murray, but he's not huge. And I just wonder if he is starting to stay in the pocket more than he used to, or teams know he's going to try and come out.
I think Andy Reid's trying to get him to stay in the pocket.
His worst statistical year he's ever had. He's still through for 4,800 yards.
I'm not...
See, Kyler Murray could actually fit in my pocket.
Yeah, that's true. With regards to the defence, the issue is really with the secondary. They've lost Tyrann Mathieu, Mike Hughes. They have to get immediate production out of the cornerback Trent McDuffie that they drafted. And we all know how that tends to go with first-year cornerbacks. And they got picked apart by the Bengals and some other teams last year. Don't forget how they started the year. They got picked apart at times, and it could happen again. Sorensen isn't the same player. He actually improved towards the end of last year, but he couldn't really get any worse from where he was in the middle of the season, where they effectively took the captaincy off him on defence and put him on the bench. So
they brought in Justin Reed, haven't they, in the secondary, which I think helps. I think he's a massive loss for the Texans.
Yes, of course.
And also he can make kicks.
he can, apparently. Yes, he kicks an extra point, didn't he?
Yeah.
So, as you're going to find with all these teams, running theme, it revolves around the quarterback, as it often does, but it's so tight in this division that it's even more important.
on your defense, your guy Carl Aftis,
Yeah,
he looks pretty decent. He looks good fun.
I haven't seen a lot of it yet. If I'm
I've
honest.
seen. It's pre-season. Address it how you want, but he looks fun.
The Los Angeles Chargers. Is there a possibility, and I'll say there is, that Justin Herbert finishes as the best quarterback in the NFL in 2022?
Yes,
In terms of either yards or touchdowns.
yes, and yes. The sky is the limit for that guy. He's fucking incredible.
Outperforming Mahomes, Rodgers, Brady, Burrows. I think it's absolutely possible. Not both categories, maybe, but one or the other. This is not necessarily my silly bet. I'm just throwing it out there to see what reaction I get. But I think it's true. I think he needs to, because I'm not sure Keenan Allen is the player he was. I know Mike Williams picks up a lot of the slack, but Keenan Allen's on the downward trend of wide receiving these days. I think he was the 7th overall in terms of yards last season, but he only got 4 touchdowns.
Julio style, isn't it? He
little
moves the
bit.
ball.
A little bit. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's just something to watch out for. I think they're going to need to elevate someone else in the wide receiver room. And also on the offense, the rotation behind Eckler is what's important. He was worn down by the end of last season. They asked too much out of a smaller back. You've got Josh Kelly, who I really like. I think he's really good. But they've also drafted Isaiah Spiller. If he is able to hit the ground running and pick up some first and second down work, then I think they're okay. Otherwise, I think it's the same again. You're going to want too much out of a player who isn't built for 3 down usage in Austin Eckler. That's how I feel about that. Don't forget, I'll bring it up again because it's important. They did not make the playoffs last season with an extremely talented roster. A roster that was better than, I would suggest, half the teams that did make the playoffs across the 2 conferences.
Comfortably.
Right. Well, they were a timeout from making it. It was poor.
Yeah, it was poor. You said to me earlier, JC Jackson is starting the season on the injury list, so that is a problem because they had signed him. They did also sign Khalil Mack, so he has something to prove. I think he needs to put some numbers up this year, and I would back him to do so.
He's got competition, hasn't he, in Joey Bosa?
Yeah.
He's not really had competition.
But it also means he might only be one-on-one.
Which is terrifying.
Absolutely.
The thing for him is how many sacks did Robert Quinn get last year, which was like 16, 17,
19,
something ridiculous. And that's because you have to 2-on-1,
2-on-1.
3-on-1.
Yeah, that's it for Khalil Mack. Right. The Las Vegas Raiders. This is Derek Carr's chance to prove any remaining doubters wrong because they've got Devontae Adams. You can argue who's number 1, 2, or 3. There aren't many better wide receivers in the league at getting separation and winning the one-on-one battles at the high point for the ball. There just aren't. I think you're going to see the best season you've ever seen out of Derek Carr, which they're going to need to compete in this division. But the other thing that's going to be important here is the Darren Waller rebound. He wasn't terrible last year, but he wasn't what we expected. And all of a sudden, because Devontae Adams is there, Darren Waller's going to be a massive red zone threat because he won't be covered the way he has been.
It's injury based last year.
Yeah.
It's like a lot of players. He wasn't able. I think that he was played injured to have that presence, but you can't have those stats whilst being injured. But fit, if he's fit, he's unplayable.
Yeah. On the other side of the ball, they're changing from 4-3 to 3-4, despite the fact that the 4-3 worked really well and Matt Crosby led the league in pressures last year.
All pro Max Crosby.
All pro Max Crosby.
The thinking man's.
I understand
Nick
that
Bosa.
you have to change
Jim.
as per your coordinator and the players that are available, but it feels like an unnecessary change.
Just to back Jim up, he is quite far below Bosa in the top 100 players. All right.
Fair enough.
Into the press.
Weakness on the Raiders for me is the fact that Rock Ya-Sin is their best cornerback.
Yeah.
And they, in this division, could well get picked apart and are going to have to struggle to catch up with some of the scoring rates they're going to be put on them, which is the same problem they've had before. They don't seem to have addressed this. Don't forget they've lost, what was his name? Damon Arnett was in the backfield. They haven't really nailed one side of the field.
So it's a very difficult division to know how to defend against.
It certainly is. It certainly is. And again, I come back to McDaniels. He's got a lot of cash in the bank because of the coordinatorship he's done, but he went 11-17 in his 2 seasons with the Broncos, and I'm not sure he's one of these players one of these coaches that should be a head coach. I think he's a world-class offensive coordinator and probably should stay in his lane. But we're going to see how that works out. Finally, the Denver Broncos. It's all changed at Mile High. Nathaniel Hackett is the human ball bag, is beginning his head coaching career, and they've enticed Russell Wilson from his spiritual home to a new beginning in Denver. This is interesting. He is the 12th quarterback that will start since Peyton left for the Broncos. There's a point available for anyone who can name any of the
Simeon.
other. Yep.
Lynch.
Yep.
Locke.
Yep.
Bridgewater.
Yep.
Osweiler.
Keenum.
Yes. Yes.
Flacco.
Yes. There's not many left. Good luck getting these 4.
Have we said Paxton Lynch?
Yes.
Yeah.
There's 4 left.
Osweiler.
You've said that one.
Oh,
Chad Kelly.
who went the other
Did not
way?
start.
Who went to Seahawks? They sent some.
I said Drew Lock already.
Drew Lock.
Da-da-da-da-da-da. Boo! The other 4 you were never going to get. Brandon Allen,
Oh,
2
yeah.
games. Jeff Driscoll. Brett Rippon.
God.
No, Brett Rippon.
Oh, and the guy, the wide receiver.
Hinton.
Yeah, Hinton.
Hinton, the wide receiver, yeah. So that is a shambles of quarterback play since the last time they went to the playoffs and won the Super Bowl, 2015. It's all that time since they went to the playoffs. This is the longest run they've ever had outside of the playoffs. They also, I believe this is right, I believe they've been averaging fewer than 21 points a game in those 6 seasons.
Yeah,
Only teams averaging worse than that?
Giants.
Yep, and
Commanders.
Jets.
New York.
New York. It's going well.
The city that never sleeps unless you go and watch the NFL.
City never sleeps or scores.
Yeah. My concern, despite all of the Russell Wilson hype, is the wide receiver group is all promise. It's all promise. I really want to believe in Jerry Jeudy. I really wanted to believe in Tim Patrick till he broke his knee. But
Yeah.
but it's all promise. They haven't really delivered at any point consistently.
Cortland Sutton was looking good
Cortland
pre-injury.
Sutton, yeah, pre-injury, but it's all promise.
Yeah.
And this is the thing, like,
Cortland Sutton's so annoying.
don't forget, Russell Wilson's wide receivers were Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf. There was one other a bit earlier when he was there, Doug Baldwin,
Percy Harvin.
Percy Harvin. Quality players.
Golden Tate.
He's got to elevate these guys. I'm not saying that he was successful because of them, but he wasn't having to work to elevate those players. Was he?
No. He won a Super Bowl with Golden Tate, thank you.
He did win a Super Bowl with Golden
but
Tate. And without
not
Percy
because-
Harvin, who fucked off, didn't he?
Yes.
Not because of Golden Tate.
And the
With
defense,
hip Golden Tate.
you've got to get everything you can in this division out of Bradley Chubb and Randy Gregory, who's come over
Yeah.
from the Cowboys.
A very expensive Randy.
18? No, more than that. It was a lot of
The
millions.
second most expensive Randy in the league.
Well done. Points to you, John Jeremy. Well done. I have my concerns over all of these teams for the points I've made. So I'm going to give you what I think. You're going to pick it apart because you will. I'm going to say Chargers, Chiefs, Raiders, Broncos. I knew you were going to pull that face.
I have it close. I have Chargers, Chiefs, Broncos, Raiders.
Yeah.
I think
It's those last two.
because of the new coach in there. As much as they've got stronger, I don't know.
I don't
see
think the
it.
Broncos are all that this year. We'll see, and I'll be happily be wrong. I like Russell Wilson.
A lot of people think you just need to plug in the quarterback there, but I don't think the offense is good enough.
No, I don't. I agree. They've got the Williams-Gordon issue at running back, where they clearly want Javonte Williams to be the lead running back. Melvin Gordon's not overly happy with it. Which one of them should be leading? They've got to make a decision. At least it's
I don't think you need. I think the fact that you can save the wear on Williams.
who's the better running back right now out of those two?
Williams.
Right
Williams,
now.
because of he doesn't have the mileage, and he's got a different skill set. But the fact that you've got those two, for one, it's going to take pressure off the fact that your wide receivers aren't superstars. I've got it. I'm in my mind currently. It's Chiefs, Broncos, Chargers, Raiders.
But when Peyton Manning got there, who was the star wideout?
Oh,
Thomas.
Demaryius Thomas.
Was he?
And Julius Thomas
Yeah.
at tight end.
Were they seen as like league leading? Were they seen as
Yes.
top 10?
They were
Yes.
big players, yeah.
Fair enough. I withdraw my point and
Right,
we'll stop
I will
talking.
make my picking Paul's pocket bet. I've got 8 written down. I don't know which one to go with.
8?
So, yeah, I wrote down 8, 2 for each team. But I'm tempted to go with Broncos missed the playoff in last place and the only team in the AFC West to miss the playoffs. But if Paul doesn't find that exciting enough, we could go with Andy Reid retires at the end of the season.
No.
Well, you can too. I don't mind which one you want to take.
So what was the first one?
The
Was
first
the
one is
Raiders
the
don't make
Broncos missed the playoffs and are the only team in the AFC West to miss the playoffs.
Nah, too easy.
Too easy. So you think it's possible they missed the playoffs,
Yeah,
even though
I do.
you told me they wouldn't finish last?
If I were a betting man,
Yeah, which you are. I'm handing this one to you. They'll finish last in the AFC West and
the
miss
Chargers will not make the playoffs.
No, I get to choose these bets. The Chargers will nail the playoffs.
I don't think they will.
I will have Herbert scores more touchdowns than Mahomes this season.
I would take a £1 bet on
£1 bet on that. Then okay, we're
Accord.
settled. Yeah.
I won't take that bet.
No. Okay,
No,
John.
I think Herbert may well score more than Mahomes this year.
I won't take that bet.
You really believe in Herbert, don't you?
I think he's a fucking.
I think
star.
everyone in our fantasy league should watch out because I think I know who John is going to try and take on the quarterback front.
Yes. I don't want to put my strategy out there, but
But it's
if
a
you've
good
been listening
strategy.
to this podcast, so basically the only person that doesn't know is Steve.
Well, that concludes the AFC walkthrough. Thank you. We're slightly over our time, but
Well,
it wasn't far. It wasn't far.
They're fun, aren't they?
I don't think there was as much contention as I believe there would be. I think a lot of the divisions are reasonably easy to see who's going to finish top. It's the rest of it.
There's some
The
There's
third,
some
fourth,
good teams
the
in
4th,
each
5th,
division.
6th and 7th places in the playoffs are going to be
Yeah.
interesting. The first 1 or 2 on either conference, I think, are going to be nailed on. I really do this year.
But this is the thing. Like we get this point, we never know because all of us had the Bengals being shit last year, and they
that's
went
true.
and got to the Super Bowl.
The AFC is just ridiculous at quarterback
Yeah.
in particular at the
Yeah.
moment. You know, you're going to get some really good quarterbacks that do not make the playoffs.
Does anybody have anything they think's been missed? Paul leaning into the microphone and
No,
no,
nothing from me.
excellent stuff. Right, in that case, it's 11 p.m. here, and I've been here in the building since 4:15 this morning. So I'm going to say good night and go home. Good night.
Bye.